All right, hey everyone. Today I am joined by probably one of the guests I've been most excited to have on this channel. For those of you that have been following me for a while, I often reference the YouTube channel Simply Always Awake as a great channel for resources on awakening, inquiry, meditation, shadow work. I reference Angelo's book very frequently, Awake, It's Your Turn. And a lot of what I share on the channel is strongly influenced by everything that I learned from Angelo, from his book, his channel, his retreats, his kind of live streams, and all of that. So for me personally, this is a guest that I'm super excited to have on because I feel like he has such a vast and clear understanding of the awakening process. And for me, from different people that I've found online, Angela has always been one that has resonated in a way that many others haven't. So that being said, I'm just really excited to have you on. Thanks so much for joining, Angela.
My pleasure. Yeah. It's good to be here, man. It's good to be chatting with you.
Amazing. So I reckon let's start maybe just for people that so a lot of people that kind of come to my channel are it's from a mix of spaces. Like some of them are struggling with like chronic health issues. And I often start to mention the topic of awakening to them to kind of help them with their suffering because it played a big role in me when I was in that space. So for someone who's kind of suffering, struggling, looking for kind of a way to deal with their suffering, and then they hear the topic of awakening, could you maybe explain to us how you would describe what awakening is, or how, if you refer to awakening personally, what are you talking about?
Sure. Yeah. I guess I'll kind of give just a bit of my own personal background with the moment that it became clear to me what it was.
Yeah.
Many years ago. But um, so for me, what life was like before the shift that I would call awakening was that I felt I mean, anxiety would be a word for it, but it was very pervasive. It was something like the way I was perceiving myself was really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The way I was perceiving life through the lens of perceiving myself was really, really uncomfortable. And I knew it had to do with thoughts. Like thoughts were very uncomfortable for me. And I didn't fully understand why. I kind of intuited to some degree that there was something uncomfortable about being bound into thoughts or like being pushed around by my own thoughts or something. And I noticed that even in childhood, but as I grew into like young adulthood, it was really intense. So I just had this very intense internal experience that something's wrong. You
Yeah.
know, there were times when I thought something was wrong with me. There
Yeah.
was there were times when I thought something was like wrong with my brain or maybe my mind or
Yeah.
even just reality. Like there was something about being a human that was just inherently uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure, but it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And nothing that I came across gave me the sense that, oh, that can help. The more I came across, the more I felt like the ways that people usually talk about getting better, feeling better, etc., kind of felt like more of the same to me. It felt like more of the same problem somehow. And I can say this clearly in retrospect. At the time, I don't know if I would have been able to articulate it like that, but there was just this sense of hopelessness, like
Mm.
nothing's going to work.
Mm.
Nothing's going to work. So when I talk to people who feel like chronically um, sort of disempowered and just chronically like just not happy with life, not feeling good about themselves, not feeling they have a way of getting out of it, like I completely relate to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the thing in retrospect is I thought it was something about me, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really about me. It was
Yeah.
something about the way I was perceiving me.
Yeah.
So for me, ultimately what happened was I started to really look closely at my thoughts and the way I was identifying with my thoughts in a specific way. And what that resulted in was this very clear shift in identity. It was a very clear shift in what I took myself to be that like wasn't a way of changing my mind. It wasn't a way of seeing the world differently or something. It wasn't a paradigm shift. It was something fundamental that like changed.
Yeah.
And it didn't suddenly make me say, "Oh, I'm happy all the time," or like, "Oh, I used to think I was a helpless person and now I feel like I'm a great person." It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't a shift in the way I saw myself even. It was a shift in the way I experienced myself.
Yeah.
And actually turns out a shift in the way I experienced everything. The
Yeah.
way I experienced like being alive. the world around me. And what came with that shift was a big release, like a big feeling of a big weight that I had been carrying
Yeah.
and actually had becoming more and more heavy over my life. It was just like released. It was just gone or almost completely gone. And so there's a big sense of relief from a weight that I didn't realize I was carrying, a
Yeah.
sense of relief from having to try to like figure out this problem of me, this thought problem. Like I just didn't have to do that. It was obvious that in a sense was the problem or it was part of it. So it was just a release into a kind of like ease,
Yeah.
a simple ease of just being alive. It's totally okay to be alive. There's really no fundamental problems.
Yeah.
And
I can feel that.
it was
Like,
very obvious. So that's what I would call
yeah.
awakening. That was how I experienced it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful when you talk about that shift from like the phase of being like very stuck in suffering and then just kind of that, I can really feel the energy of what you're saying of like that release and that relief. Um, Yeah, and I like the way you said, like I can just personally really relate to that as I think when we talk about awakening, it can sound like super mystical or like something that's like a transcendent experience or something like that. But from and it's funny, like your book and some of your transmissions were really kind of what hit me when I was also in that kind of like boiling pits of like mental anguish and suffering and all of that. And yeah, the description that you use of like a weight off the shoulders is always kind of but like a weight that you didn't even realize was there, or what it felt like for me was um, like, oh my God, there's nothing to run from, there's nothing to fix, there's nothing like this whole time that I've been trying to, and I like what you said. I really relate to what you said about it feeling like something's wrong with me, that kind of
Mhm.
like yeah, the way the mind makes it about like I'm the problem, or like there's
Yeah.
something here to solve. Yeah,
That was maybe one of the biggest parts of the relief is that
yeah,
turns
yeah,
out there was nothing wrong with me at all.
exactly.
But but there was something in a sense wrong with the way I was focusing my attention. It was like there was something I was doing
Yeah,
without realizing it. And it was totally innocent. I was trying to solve the problem of me, but I was focusing my attention into thoughts in a really
yeah,
almost obsessive way
yeah,
without realizing I was doing it. So there was something about the focus that was off,
yes,
but the actual sense of me that opened up after that, or the sense of just aliveness being was like such a relief. Like, oh, there's really no big personal problem like I thought there was.
yeah,
That was huge. Yeah.
yeah,
And I also wanted to say, you mentioned that some of your viewers have chronic illness or chronic pain.
yeah, yeah.
I do want to say, just in a very simple way, but ahead of time, that when we talk about awakening, I didn't have it as much. I had some version of it, but some people,
Mhm.
the feeling of angst, the feeling that I was talking about of being contracted, of being stuck in a self, stuck in a mind, stuck in
Yeah,
something that doesn't feel right, often that actually feels like pain. So some people
yeah,
feel
yeah,
that as physical pain or physical symptoms.
yeah.
And so sometimes, not always, of course, and there's a mixture, but sometimes what is interpreted as chronic pain, chronic illness, the symptoms are actually energetic, or they're actually
Cool.
pointing you to waking up.
Yeah,
So
for
those
sure.
could also be pointers. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that you bring that up because that's kind of really, I feel like, well, like that's what my journey taught me, and that's kind of what the people that I work with now is really, because that's what it was for me, was like coming to this understanding that, um, yeah, so much because it plays out physically in the nervous system. Like we'll get maybe into this a bit later, talking about shadow work and repressed emotions. But this is kind of where this for me it was like it started off as like this health crisis. It was like a health crisis journey that turned into an awake. Like then I found your content because of like meditation and all of that kind of stuff that was helping with my physical like symptoms. And then at some point there was this massive realization that it was like the mixture of mind identification plus emotional repression, like those two together, was like really messing with the nervous system in a sense. Like there was just kind of all of that mental proliferation, and you know, um, it's like I think you just used the term as well. It's like a boiling pot kind of inside there, and it's like that really energetically starts to mess with the physical body. So yeah, I definitely relate to what you're saying, and it's yeah, and for me, what was so helpful with the healing was this kind of realizing again, it's like the thought loop of trying to fix something that actually was kind of like reinforcing the pain or the symptoms. And like, there's something here that I have to fix. And it was like kind of learning to reverse that process of like, so what if that, and maybe that can take us into the next thing. It was like, what if that thought is allowed? What if that sensation is allowed? What if that symptom is allowed? That pain, that emotion. And then it starts just to unwind this whole kind of little tightening bundle that's, or this knot, like energetic thought-based knot that just makes everything worse. Um, yeah, but what I wanted to maybe come back to was what you said about the first shift. What I really liked was like that it is much more about the relationship to thought than trying to solve the problem in thought itself. You know, so like maybe we could talk a little bit on that because that's what I experienced as well. Was and that's what I learned from you. I think that's what I was such a relief as well when I found your book, especially the chapter on thoughts and some of your kind of videos was like, you know, been meditating for like a year or so, and it's just like, oh my God, I don't have to do anything about the thoughts. Like I really like when you kind of when you transmitted that, it was like such a relief as well. It's like I don't have to do anything about the thoughts. Like the thoughts are completely okay to be there. And there was such a release in that because I think when you're in that world, you just you just feel like you have to keep on fixing the thoughts and kind of rearranging the thoughts to get out of it. What would you say on that?
Yeah, yeah, it's like I could say anyone can relate to life having challenges, right? So there's like, you've got to figure out a way to make money, you've got to figure out a way to stay healthy, you may have health challenges, you may have relationship challenges. Like all these things come up, right? And so you have thoughts about them, like I got to what should I do about this, or what should I do about that? So I just want to say it that way because anyone can relate to that. For me, before I had the shift, I actually believed I was those thoughts. Like I thought I was those problems to fix. Like
Yeah.
it felt so real to me that like I have to, oh my God, I have to figure that out or figure this out. And at the core of it was I have to figure me out. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was the problem that needed to really be fixed. And I was so identified with those thoughts. It felt like me felt like a problem. Like the being me itself felt like a big problem that needed to be solved all the time.
Yeah.
That's really uncomfortable. Turned out I wasn't that. So you could just say it's actually a release from seeing that any thought you have about yourself actually defines you in any way at all,
Yeah.
because it really doesn't at
Yeah.
all. And then all of a sudden you can just feel this falling away from that. You'll feel this sense of like, oh man, I don't have to grab onto that thought. I don't have to grab onto that thought. Sure, the world is full of challenges. You're going to always have challenges and so forth, but that doesn't mean you have to like bind yourself into thinking about them all the time or thinking
Yeah.
about yourself as the one that has those problems, challenges, and so forth. You just don't have to. It's almost like a hyper vigilance to the thoughts
Yeah.
that you can break, and there are different ways to go about that are almost opposite in a way. We can talk about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, the relationship with thought is fundamentally what really changes, that you just don't have to fixate on thought and you can rest back in
Yeah.
something else. We can talk
Yeah.
about that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I love that. And I think just reflecting back on my own journey, like one of the pointers that I think really hit home was hearing you talk about identity. Like because I was going through this thing where it's like identity after identity. Like it was before I even knew what awakening was. So it's funny, I also really resonated when you would talk about like this process starts before you like awakening often finds you before you even realize it, you know? And it's so funny how the mind's almost playing catch up with the process, like having this whole illness thing and these identities are being stripped away. You know, it's like I used to be the sporty guy or like these were kind of all the identities of like, oh, I'm so into exercise, I'm so into sport, I'm studying, I'm this, I'm that, right? All these kind of things. And those started to get stripped away by life in essence, by kind of the illness, by life really. And, you know, for so long before I understood anything about awakening, it was like, it felt like such a problem because like that I was losing my identity. So it was like, who the fuck am I anymore if I'm not those things? I know it's funny. I was already going through all of this already, and then I like found your book, and you started talking about like self-inquiry and like the whole point of the process, like letting go of identity. And I was like, oh, great! Like I'm in a great place because life's already started doing that. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, maybe to circle back to like kind of what you were saying about um, yeah, kind of the relationship to thought and identification with thought. Like I think so much suffering comes from the need to defend. And again, this was what really hit home for me, was like oh my God, there's nothing to defend either. Like the need to hold on and, you know, save face and have a mask that you need to uphold, like the whole identity,
Hmm. Yeah.
system and structure. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the way you said that. It's like, the feeling that okay, so yeah, let's just start with the fact that there are many people who are going to watch this who are already going through early stages of this, whether they know it
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah,
There are going
exactly.
to be people who already went through it, and there are going to be people who know they're going through it. But there
Yeah.
are going to be people who like they just start going, "Oh yeah, maybe that is kind of happening." And what you said is on point. It's like when you see and feel that like identity, it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, what am I then if I'm not that thought and I'm not that thought?
Yeah.
You might start feeling this falling away. And I want to point this out. This is important that there's a like psychological attachment to those thoughts and beliefs, but there's also a bit of a physical attachment,
Yeah.
sort of. It's a response, and that is when you feel that falling away, you may actually feel a little bit of fear, like physical fear, like, whoa, wait, who am I? What if I really
Yeah.
let go too much?
Yeah.
And what I would tell you is the fear is actually not a problem. The fear, your mind's interpretation of the fear may tell you, no, no, go back into the thoughts. But
Yeah.
my pointer would be, no, it's okay, just let go. And
Yeah.
that fear will go away. Like
Yeah.
you'll go through like a fear phase sometimes and the dropping away, but you really can let go of all of your sense of needing to hold on to a mental identity,
Yeah.
and you'll find that you're actually just fine. You're more than fine.
Yeah.
You'll find you can actually rest in everything. You can rest in just beingness, in
Yeah.
just aliveness that is so beautiful, bountiful,
Yeah.
infinite, and settled. It's not like I don't know, dissociated. It's very
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
But you might find a bit of a fear barrier as you notice that letting go. And
Yeah.
my advice is don't fight it. Just it's okay to let go into the
Yeah.
experience of just pure being without thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you say there is so key around because I think this is what a lot of people are lacking. And it was like what made such a huge difference to me. And what I try to share with people now was the knowing that it's okay to let go. Like this is what I didn't know. Like that's it's okay to let go of identity, and like it's okay to let go. Like I think we get that so socially conditioned in us that it's like, even if we talk about beliefs, which maybe we'll get to, it's like, you have to hold on to something. You have to kind of, you can't just let go and not know who you are. Feel like it's like you said, it feels fucking life threatening.
Mhm. It can, yeah.
Yeah, I count into the mind. Like it feels like I'm gonna go crazy if I
Yeah.
don't know who I am. And I think that's what made such a big difference for me during those kind of phases was like again just getting this reflection. Because also like I was saying, like some people are not going to know they're going through the awakening process. And like what that made such a huge difference to me was to be like, oh, this is actually a thing, like this whole losing this perception of who I am and like my whole identity just crumbling because of life circumstances. Um, so what I would maybe want to say to people, because I think a lot of people that watch my content or find my content are often in like and it's probably the same for you, but are often in pretty challenging life circumstances, whether it's health or just suffering in whatever form it's playing out, crisis. And I would say like trust, allow yourself to kind of be opened up and cracked open by those circumstances, really. And this can maybe bring us into like the different paths to awakening, which could be the more like the surrender and the letting go completely and just trusting, and then maybe the more intention inquiry based approach and kind of bringing them together. But I think just the permission, I think this is what can be so helpful for people. It's just the permission to know that it is fundamentally okay to let go of the mind, of your identities, of who you think you are supposed to be. Like, I feel like that just adds so many layers to it. Is like not knowing that it's okay to completely let go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you let go with one hand and you're still holding on with the other hand, you're never going to know it's like if you're still holding on partially to what you think you are, you're
Yeah.
not really going to find out what you really are, or even whether you need to be anything in particular. Like, any kind of identity at some point is the limiting experience. Like
Yeah.
I'm pointing to something that's not a limited experience. So it's kind of awesome, but you're never going to know that if you kind of just still try to hold on to like, some way that
Mhm.
you insist you must be based on
Yeah.
thought, because thoughts are nuts. Like you can just watch your thoughts. Watch your thoughts for a half a day. You'll see like every kind of crazy thing comes through the mind. None of that is you, which is really good news. There's something you can rest in that is so much more settled than the mind. There's so much more settled than thought. That's so much more equanimous or has equanimity, that is so much more natural. Yeah.
Mhm.
And as you said it earlier, and I think this is important to say is we can, if we've read about spirituality, like say Buddhism or Vaita Vedanta or pop spirituality or whatever, we've come across it. Our mind gets a kind of flavor to that, and we
Yeah,
kind of build that into the idea of who we are too.
yeah,
But
yeah,
this
yeah,
is letting go of that too. You kind of
yeah,
let go of everything because this isn't
exactly.
a spiritual thing we're talking about. It's a personal thing, actually. It's an intimate thing we're talking about,
Yeah,
which is good news because it's available to everyone. Anyone
yeah,
can do this.
yeah,
Anyone can do this. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I love that you bring that up, and I think that's always what like was so refreshing about your sharing on this topic was the kind of freedom from any specific like I even through you, I often then would want to go and like work with somebody else, whatever, to kind of get um, just like a reflection or help with shadow work or whatever. But I always like would just come back to what I learned from you, which was the awakening plays out how awakening plays out, not not how a certain tradition thinks awakening plays out. Like sure,
That's very important.
some traditions can like get good at mapping it and all of that, but like I really resonate with how you share it, and it's kind of again the same way that I see it in people that I work with now is like it plays out exactly how you like I think you've said it before, which I so love, is like people show you how they wake up. You're not teaching people how to wake up, it's like
It's
um
true.
the process is showing us continuously that even the whole awakening process is not bound by any sort of specific rules or mental ideas of how it's supposed to be. Like again, we can notice certain stages and stuff that kind of map across people, but yeah, I love that, like bringing that point up. Like it's not about adding anything more to the identity structure, about becoming a Buddhist, becoming even a good meditator or a good spiritual person. It's quite the opposite. Like inquiry and
Yeah,
meditation, all of that can be really helpful, but it's like, what if you just keep letting go and don't add anything back on. Yeah.
totally. Well, that's the thing. Okay, so when we talk about approaches,
Yeah.
very basically, when we're talking about this first shift, the shift in identity, where it really gets the ball rolling in this whole unbinding process. But um, I think I could almost summarize based on the conversation we're having that there's like three kind of approaches.
Mm.
Maybe one of them is really surrender. And I might call it like a feminine approach. Like
Yeah, I
surrender is like
agree. Yeah.
sometimes I'll just tell somebody that I sense they're really on the edge already. And I'll
Yeah.
just say, there's somewhere you want to go, or there's somewhere you've known you can go, but
Yeah.
everything's been telling you not to go there your whole life. Like
Yeah.
you can just
Exactly.
go there.
Exactly.
And some people know that and they do that's it. Like that's
I
the
think
shift and they're
I think that's
able to do
exactly
that.
what when I was talking about like that permission to let go that I just got from like one of your videos or like something. Like I think
Mm,
that's the way like it's just like this like, oh my God, I'm allowed to let go,
yeah.
like permission. That's the
Yeah,
rental.
yeah. And I think at some point, no matter which approach of that I'm going to talk about you
Yeah,
would
yeah,
take, you're going to end up there anyway. You'll feel a drop like that. But some people just intuitively get that. They don't need a process. They don't care about maps. They don't care about techniques. They don't care about inquiry, actually. They get that.
yeah,
Then there's like the middle ground where I think most people fall. It's like some form of practice or inquiry is helpful because it kind of tells their mind that they're giving themselves something to do. And I mean, you can actually engage the mind through inquiry, but you're kind of using the mind to like uproot its own root in a way. It's like a sneaky
yeah,
little trick you're playing with your own mind, like
yeah,
by self-inquiring, and we can talk about ways that works.
yeah.
But another way that's really interesting is actually the opposite of the first way, and that is the one-pointed approach. And
Mm,
Zen takes this approach, Renzai Zen
mm,
specifically,
yeah,
is like using a koan where you become so one-pointed and so laser focused on
mm,
something that it's like your mind has time to reset itself. It's almost like a reset. And
yeah,
that will result in a dropping away as well. But it doesn't feel like that as you're approaching. It feels like an intensity of practice. So that really works well for people who are really intensely practice based. They've meditated for years, especially if they're like a sort of Zen practitioner. That
yeah,
one pointed approach may be also what you need. So
yeah,
there, these are kind of basic approaches I see. But again, everybody kind of goes in their own way. And I
yeah,
see some version of those
yeah,
filtered through someone's own life experience. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it can be like a complete mixture of all of those as well. Like if I maybe that could be fun to talk about. I just thought of it like to kind of share each of us what like specific inquiry or like approaches kind of really like uh happened around that kind of a shift. So I'll maybe start like, yeah, I think for me it was like a mix, a real mix of all the approaches, like the surrender, and also just like kind of coming at it with everything, like pointers. Because like maybe we can talk about this as well, like the whole transmission thing as well. Like I think you don't often understand what someone's talking about when they talk about transmission in early stages like of this process, like if you kind of have an interest. But like I even remember that when I first read your book, I was like, what the fuck is he talking about when he says transmission? But it actually works. Like if you just kind of, I think Eckhart Tolle said this, where it's like if you spend enough time, next to a burning log, that's going to make the other log start to burn as well. And it's like that's another way, I suppose, is like you could really bombard yourself from all angles with pointers from different kind of teachers, and just let the energy transmit, regardless of even if the mind is understanding exactly what they're saying. Well, I think like at one point I was listening to stuff from you, Ajashanti, mixing in some like inquiries, doing a lot of meditation. My whole life was just falling apart, which was teaching me how to surrender. And it was like that whole, and again, like that itself could not be organized by my mind to make awakening happen. But I think what that can also lead to is like the fundamental thing that all that really matters in the end is the willingness as well. Like no matter what specific inquiry or approach out of these approaches that we're sharing, like if that, and that's also what like I remember reading that in your book, it's like all you need in the end is this like kind of burning desire for truth to kind of really come from the heart. And that in itself was such a relief for like an analytical mind as well, where it's like, fuck, I don't have to get it right. It's just this like, okay, I want this more than anything else in life. I was like, life, take everything, like literally, this is all that I want. And it's like, that then can go into any specific inquiry or practice or, modality. But I always, the willingness is what really drives the process.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'll even say it's even more than like I don't have to get this right. It's like you realize you can't get it right.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it right through thinking about it.
Yeah.
This isn't like I just got to be clear to anybody. I had a Zen teacher actually after the shift for me, and he clarified some things. But one of the things he'd say a lot was like, he's like, if you think you can get this through thinking or talking, he's like, come into Doksan and we'll mix it up. Like, because it's not a conceptual thing, right? So the beauty of it is like it is a relief when you realize not only because if I believe that even if you tell me like before, especially because my mind is very sharp or was very, very sharp back then. I was like sharp, not in a bragging way, sharp and like I couldn't get out of it. It's like stuck in my own mind. But if you would have told me like, you don't have to figure this out, I would have thought, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll still figure it out. But if you tell me like it is impossible for you to figure this out, now it's like, oh, okay, that feels different. Like it might feel a little scary at first, but there's something that's like, oh yeah. So that was part of the deal for me. It was like realizing like, oh yeah, this is beyond me. It started to feel like something sublime. Like I was in touch with something really beyond the scope of me. That was part of it. I could feel that happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It makes me think of this like, well, like for me, it was like this mix of the pure suffering driving the process, but also like for me, like I often talk about the suffering aspect because I think people relate to that. But for me, it was also this like pure curiosity as well, where it was just like at first, because of the suffering made me really curious. Like again, like my whole life was starting to shift where it was like, okay, I'm not going to university anymore. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So like, what is actually going on here? So I started like before I knew about awakening, I was like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I'm going to figure out what this existence thing is. So I was like, I'm going to read every single book on physics possible. And like, the more I read about physics, it just wasn't like, it wasn't satisfying anything, and then it was like, okay, philosophy must have the answers. And then philosophy is just like concept after concept after concept. But I'm like, this doesn't explain anything fundamental. Like, how am I actually perceiving anything at all? Why is there anything at all? And that's I think that started to take me, like what you're saying as well, into that taste of something sublime, like this just pure curiosity where it was like, oh my gosh, it's not in that. Like nobody in all of this kind of conceptual stuff actually knows what's going on or like has an answer to like the fundamental question. And then I think that's why, like when I came across awakening and then talking about like, okay, turn all that curiosity into yourself, into like I was reading a lot about consciousness. So it was like so what even makes it possible for you to perceive that? Or like what even makes it why study consciousness in a book when you can study it like right here?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
When you see that, when you realize that, like for anyone watching this, the moment you realize like the ultimate territory for exploration of I promise what you've really always wanted, what
Yeah.
you've always really wanted is directly available to you right now, all the time, always. And that is consciousness.
Yeah.
That is your access point right now.
Yeah.
When you really start to recognize that, yeah, it kicks in the curiosity, like this
Yeah.
kind of curiosity that is. I was interviewing a friend recently, and he said, "If you have expectations, you can't be curious." And I
Mhm.
was like, "Whoa, that's a really good
Yeah.
statement." You know,
Yeah, that's great.
and so if you really have that openness and curiosity, and you recognize that what I'm saying is true, like you don't need to get some spiritual understanding. Like you don't need to understand some obscure spiritual reference from the Pali Canon. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You are already in it. You're in
Yeah.
the best place you can be to wake up. When
Yeah.
you sense that, and then you kind of sense that curiosity, you
Yeah.
kind of start looking around in a way. You know, it's like you know you're doing it, and you also don't know you're doing it, and it's kind of awkward because it's like learning to walk again because you're trying
Mhm.
to learn to be and experience being and consciousness without thinking about it as such. And
Yeah.
you notice you don't need those thoughts to actually recognize the experience of consciousness right now.
Yeah.
Like you're in good territory then. It's
Yeah.
like then it's just exploration, exploration and a kind of commitment, as you said, to truth, one way or another, however that lands for you. When
Yeah.
you say to yourself or to the universe, I really just want the truth. I
Yeah.
really want the truth, whatever that means to me and
Yeah.
whatever that does to my life. Like,
Yeah.
don't say
Whatever
that unless you
costs.
mean it, because you're talking to a very powerful force. Forget what it is, but you're just don't say that unless you mean it,
I
But
remember,
it will start doing things.
yeah. I remember you giving that warning, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm already like I was already like as I said, it had already started happening before I even knew what was going on. So when you gave that and you're like, be careful what you wish for, I was like, oh my God, there's nothing more than I want. It was almost like, it was also this like, because like we can talk about the death aspect of awakening as well, maybe. And it was like, again, that was like such a deep level of letting go, was like something in me just did not want to live in that way anymore. But it was like, okay, but I also know that like, suicide's not gonna, it's just something in me just knew like that's just avoidance. Like that's not actually going to solve anything. So I was literally like, I would like go sit on it. I was like, how do I die without dying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Exactly. Yeah. How do I let go without because in a sense, like I thought of the same thing too. It's like if I were
Yeah.
to kill myself,
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate form of control. And I
Exactly.
could feel
Right.
that control was the problem. Like the illusion of control somehow
Yeah.
was part of the problem. So yeah, I knew it was like it almost made me feel simultaneously more helpless, but also more like
Yeah. Well, it
that was
can.
open up
It,
that
yeah.
mystery and that curiosity that was like beyond my own dimension. And I
Yeah.
realized, it started to feel like something, it almost started to feel like looking at life backwards. Like I was looking more toward where I was born, like my own
Yeah.
source. Like it
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
started to feel like that Zen, koan. What
Yeah.
was your parents' face, or what was your face before your parents were
Mhm.
born? It's
Yeah.
almost like pointing to your source and before your like, what is your cause?
Yeah.
What is the fundamental cause that brought you into being or brings
Yeah.
consciousness forth? Like
Yeah.
when you realize you can actually turn your attention round into that,
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can use certain questions to really like orient towards that taste, like if we talk about inquiry questions, because it's like, and I think that's what's nice about like mixing the inquiry with the one pointed with the curiosity. So it's like if you sense a little bit of this curiosity that we're talking about, like and I'll share like one that really would just like open me. Because again, like you shared in your book, and also I would recommend the chapter on inquiry in your book. Like I think it's one of the best um, detailed descriptions of the whole inquiry technique. That's not a technique, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like the question for me that would really open things up in the same kind of way to like before this specific existence was I would ask like why is there anything at all? Like how is there anything at all? And if I just kept on dropping into that, it would literally just like completely stop my mind, where I would just like just this kind of taste of like there's no answer to that. There's like no thought that can answer that question of like like anything at all, like cosmically, like consciousness, like the fact that there's anything at all, like how the fuck is that even possible? And again, there's no
Mhm.
like thought answer that satisfies that, but there's such a like you can taste something, where it's like
Mhm.
it's palpable. But also like that specific question might not like be the same for everyone. It could be, anything that really just like makes you feel that kind of that inquiry, curiosity.
Yeah, it's like it captures your interest, but it also directs you beyond the mind somehow.
Yes,
And what
exactly.
you said is that's perfect. Like, how is there anything at all? Well, anything you read about physics or philosophy or cosmology, it's going to start with some kind of words. It's like, well, why is
Exactly.
that even there? You know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
genius way of inquiring. But everybody, I don't know about everybody, but many people have their own natural inquiry as well. So
Exactly.
many people resonate with a certain like Zen inquiry or even Advaita Vedanta type inquiry. You may resonate with those, but you may also have just your own fundamental question. And I really try to tell people like give yourself permission to ask what you really, really want to know. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah,
especially if it takes you beyond concepts.
yeah,
If it takes you beyond concepts to an experience of wonder,
yeah,
you know, like that wonder is kind of where poetry points. Poetry kind of
yeah,
points you into
yeah,
wonder.
exactly. Yeah,
um, Experiences can point you into wonder, like an extreme sports experience or even an extreme emotion experience sometimes
yeah,
points you into wonder.
yeah,
Sometimes disruption in life points you into wonder.
yeah,
Like an unexpected thing, a tragedy even, but it disrupts everything so much that all of a sudden you're open to this sense of wonder.
yeah,
When you're in the territory of wonder, you're in a good place. Just keep orienting that way. Keep
yeah,
going, you know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'd even add to that because like that's more of the like the wonder, the curiosity side of it. And for someone that's just in such like pure raw suffering, like even the question of like, how do I stop suffering? Okay, like that could fuel the mind, but even like if it's coming from that place of just that kind of like, like
Mhm.
deep burning desire. And again, I always love the idea of like life responds to your deepest intentions. If it's like,
Mhm.
show me how to stop suffering. For like people that are just like in
Yeah.
so much suffering, they're like, I don't care. Like, yeah, cool, wonder, that kind of a space.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do I stop suffering? Like, I just don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this.
Mhm.
That can be the fire as well. Like to kind of put
Mhm.
that in your heart and just say like, please show me. Like because there's also that's the letting go. It's like the humility and the humbleness of like, I don't know anymore
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
how to stop suffering.
And yeah, and I want to point out, like as we talked about before, that a lot of these things probably played in for both of our experiences when this happened. Again, this was 27 years ago or 28. It was a long time ago for me, but there are certain components I remember very, very clearly to it. One of them was that for me, it was suffering. Suffering is what drove me to
Yeah,
inquiry, to the edge of awakening. Like it was suffering all the way up and down the line. I didn't have curiosity. I just didn't want to suffer anymore.
yeah,
I mean, I kind of had some curiosity, but it wasn't until I kind of took this almost one pointed approach. I read in this book, it was a Zen book, and the Zen master said, when you're sitting, like I had already learned to meditate, so I knew how to meditate. He said, when you're sitting, and he was using the koan mu. What is mu? And mu is a koan that essentially has no particular meaning actually,
yeah,
but you were instructed to just focus on mu, not trying to figure it out intellectually at all, focusing on it. And he said it's like a railroad track that goes on to infinity. You
mm,
stay with mu
mm,
for infinity. You don't back off of it. You never leave it. And at first I was like, the mind is like, oh, that's too hard. How could I do that? But then I was like, well, those are thoughts. And I just focused on it. And all of a sudden, that actually felt like the death I wanted. Like
yeah,
I was like, oh, that's a relief to be
yeah,
that focused on something to infinity because it relieved me from having to obsess about my thoughts somehow.
yeah,
So that was the transition point. That one pointed approach, that railroad track to infinity, I got it. Somehow I understood that. It felt like a different kind of relief than I've ever felt before. So I could put my attention into it. And that actually opened me up to where the deeper inquiry around thought started. It also opened me up to that kind of wonder, like something opened up
yeah,
with that.
yeah, yeah,
But it took me almost like an obsessive movement on that track to get there. But it felt right. I was like, yeah, that's where I want to go. I want to go into that one point because that one point is it's kind of like when the old TV screens would go like this and it's one point. It's like
yeah,
all that other
yeah,
fucking shit in the mind that was just constantly driving me crazy was just quiet. It was like, oh, just that one point. I can do that. I can sit here in that one point and just stay here forever because this is, even though it's totally neutral, it's hell of a lot better than what I usually experience.
yeah,
And that did something. Staying there long enough did something for sure. I don't want to say what it was because I don't want to take anyone's experience, but it
yeah,
changed something where all of a sudden I had a very different internal landscape. And then I could very clearly see thoughts. Like I could see, well,
mhm,
that's a thought. I don't have to grab
yeah,
that thought. I don't have that thought has nothing to do with me.
yeah,
And then it's like, well, what the hell am I? And then it's just everything fell away and it was so clear, so quiet, so vast
yeah,
and spacious. It's like nothing I'd ever experienced. And at the same time, it felt familiar. It was like
yeah, yeah,
there's not a damn thing I had to think about. I didn't have to figure anything out. It was dead quiet. So for me, it was kind of like suffering, one pointed approach, then this kind of inquiry, and then this kind of mystery and wonder. And then the whole thing just took on its own. I was not in control of anything.
yeah,
I was along for the ride and it was beyond me. Like it definitely took on its own life of as it really started opening. So yeah.
yeah, 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 for sure. And I sort of get what you mean about like the kind of the relief in like being given that, or like reading that kind of transmission of like just this, railroad track to infinity of this like one point, because it's like all that strategizing, all of that like seeking elsewhere. It's like just such a like, okay, I don't need to do any of that anymore. It's like I can just completely give myself to this, like so I can feel the relief in that, um, as well. Oh, and that made me think of something that I wanted to share, because it's funny, it kind of played out in my journey, and then I see it so much in other people's journeys as well. It's like any way that we describe awakening or this kind of first shift, like it will never be what it's going to be like for you, because I remember like I actually had the first shift. Like I just saw it as like, um just I was like meditating and doing all of this, and then like one day I was just like this fundamental idea also of like, oh fuck, like I don't need to suffer. Like it was just literally like I was starting to like go get called pulled into the thoughts again, and it was just like, I don't know if you know John Aston at all, if you've ever come
Yeah.
across him. Yeah. So I was like doing his like satsangs and listening to your stuff and listening to Ajahn, like all of the at the same time, because I had nothing else going on in my life. And it was just like I don't need to suffer. It was just like this real kind of clicking. And then it happened over like for me, it happened over like a week or so. Like it wasn't like one specific shift. It was like a bunch of like kind of things clicking into place. But
Mm.
I always kind of really like, again, I really resonated your work. So I was always focusing on this kind of big awakening, so like so much shifted and dropped away in this kind of week, and then life just started to feel like flow, and it was just like, oh wow, there's just such a relief from like having to fix myself anymore. And there was like, again, like you said, like not wanting to talk about specific experiences for the mind to get attached to it, but there was like in one meditation that's just like complete, um it was like the sweet spot between concentration and letting go of just like this kind of, like I guess focusing the mind, but also completely letting go of like what was meant to happen. And like in that, there was just this like complete dissolution, and like this merging with something else is kind of what it felt like. I never used to speak about that at all, but like it took me like 6 months later until I realized, like again, like I was joining your like calls and like your like all your live things, and then I actually spoke to someone else that was doing kind of one-on-ones. And he's like, oh, that shift that you're looking for, like it's already happened. Like the way that you're talking about, like, okay, so the thoughts are doing this, and like, and it was like, so I just wanted to add that for anybody that listens to us kind of talking about like, okay, because I remember listening to that. So I was like, okay, mine has to be like this railroad track because I read your book. Right? So I was
Yeah.
really trying to copy and paste it as that, but actually something fundamental had already completely fallen away. So I wanted to
Yeah.
echo that to anybody that's listening to this conversation now, that and I've actually heard a couple of people where it's like it's already happened, like you can tell it in the way that they're kind of talking or whatever,
Mhm.
and yet the mind is just, there's still this little something maybe caught up in the idea of awakening needing to be a shift or a massive explosion. And maybe it can be for
Yeah.
some people, but yeah.
It's you make a lot of good points there, and it's such a like I say, it's such a personal experience in a way,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though it's impersonal. That one thing that's always not always one thing that very commonly happens, and it's totally okay if this happens, it's normal. But anyone approaching a shift like that, their mind is going to do this thing where they're comparing their experience to what they've heard. So they'll
yeah,
be like, "Oh, is this what Angelo said, or is this what Kyle said, or is this what Eckhart Tolle said, like, oh, it's kind of like that. It's kind of not. When you see that happening, just notice that's thought. Just
Yeah.
let those thoughts go. Just go where your own instinct takes you. Don't worry. Don't try to compare it to anything because it's at some point it will not be comparable to anything.
Yeah.
Period. It's not going to be describable. It's not going to be comparable. It's so intimate. It's so real that there's no words for it. There's no comparison, no map. You're like off the map. But the only way you can do that is on going your own way. You can't do it my way or
Yeah.
Kyle's way. That's
Exactly.
the weird thing about it. So
Exactly.
even though yes, we're using all these words, your mind can turn it into this and that. It's not about that. It's just about your own instinct, and it will take you where you need to go. The other thing is, I have seen this where I've talked to people afterward, and I'm like talking to them, and they're like, "Well, I haven't had the first shift yet," and I'm like, you seem like you have, like you really seem. And then I ask him,
Yeah.
I go, like, well, this thing did happen. Oh yeah, it did totally change the way I experienced myself. And I'm like, that's the shift, you know? And
Yeah.
for me, I can tell you there were probably times there were a lot of changes and redistribution of my experience so in so many ways for years after, but
Mm.
there were times I probably would have said the same thing. I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if I would describe it as
Yeah.
a shift or whatever. But I was also probably would have said that because I was trying to relate to people in the world of thought because I
Exactly.
still try to relate to people
Exactly.
that way. But
Exactly.
instinctually, I
Yeah.
knew damn well that something was different. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was so obvious.
Yeah.
So there's something so strange about identity itself, and language is actually often all about identity. When you're talking to someone else, there's a lot of like exchange of ideas and identity and personal stories that are built into even why you're talking. So
Mhm.
it can be tricky to even talk about this stuff. So um, the only reason I talk about it, I assume same with Kyle, is the only reason we really talk about this is just to kind of give you that taste. If you get the taste, turn toward it. That the rest is on you, and you can do it. You know, just
Yeah.
trust that you can actually find your way beyond your own suffering, beyond your own identified mind, and to something that's just far more real than that world of suffering. And that's all we're really pointing to.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be a map that you're going to be able to follow exactly. So
Yeah. Yeah, as well, like so many great points that I wanted to touch on there. But like, um, I think firstly, I'll just say, like, yeah, for anybody listening to this as well, because like you said, like the way the mind interprets this kind of thing is also that anybody's had that has had an awakening is special in some sort, you know, like, and then in my mind used to do that as well. It was like, okay, at least like listen to you, even yeah, I just Shanti, Sam Harris, Eckhart Tolle, like all these guys. It was like, oh wow, you know, they're like spiritually gifted in a sense. And also, yeah, like some people might have more of an inclination to these kind of things, but like the uh the fact that, and this was always so helpful, the fact that it's about you, it's like it's literally like because so for anybody that's like if anybody's mind is doing this right now, like okay, this thing that Kyle's talking about and Angelo's talking about, like my mind did the exact same thing that your mind is doing to you right now. So it's nothing about you that's wrong with it, you know. Like if your mind is
yep.
saying like, yeah, it's just, you know, there must be something special about them. It's like you said, like this whole thing that we're talking about is you. It's
Yeah, I know. It's like how many times can we say it and how many ways can we say it? But at some point it just lands for people sometimes. And that's why I love to talk about this because I know the value of when it landed for me.
yeah,
I mean,
same.
I heard about enlightenment, I heard about Buddhism. Like I was fascinated with it. Western philosophy didn't really do it for me. I liked Plato, talked about the cave and stuff, but the Eastern philosophy stuff, there was something about it. I'm like, there's something here, but I still didn't get it. Like I read some Buddhist stuff. I read the Tao Te Ching, and I was just like, there's something here, but I don't get this. Like, what the heck is going on? Until I got it, and when I got it, probably the most obvious thing that was different in the way I got it than what I would have expected was that it was about me. I was like, oh, you mean this thing that like I've been like stressing over and suffering from, but kind of hiding too. Like
Yeah,
there's a hiding to it. I don't know if you had that, but there's almost
yeah,
like you don't talk about it. Like there's this part of
yeah,
yourself you
yeah,
don't
that's
talk about
huge.
because it's so
That's huge. Yeah,
shameful.
yeah,
Like there was that too, right? And I was like, oh
yeah,
my God, you mean it addresses that? It
yeah,
addresses like that inner
yeah,
fundamental sense of like something's just completely fucking wrong with me.
yeah,
Like that, that's all we're talking
yeah.
about.
Actually, I'm so glad you bring that up because that was fucking huge when I read your book. Like that's why it was such a relief. Like I think it's your first chapter. You're like, you don't have to suffer, you know, and I like, you know, my whole teenage years, like I really related to you and what you'd said about like suffering driving the process. Like for me, there was the curiosity as well. But when I read that, it's exactly like you said, the shame of this hiding, like, you know, that I have to appear to be okay all the time. And like that relief. So I'm really glad you brought that up because that was huge for me personally. Was like, again, like throughout high school, throughout university, this like, and also this fundamental, there was this fundamental fear, this fear and this shame kind of mixed together. Like for me, the fear was like, I'm never going to get it right, like how to live my life, like this, the shame of like, I'm suffering and I'm trying so hard to get it right. Like I just don't like, okay. And the mind is always putting it on the next thing, so it's like, okay, I finished high school, university, that's a new experience. That's like this, like whatever. It's going to be in there. And then like after the first year of university, like still just like also this kind of like depression. And it's just like, I'm not getting it right.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I just kind of like a bunch of things, but then like that thing in your book, it just hit so home. It was like, oh my God, like there's not something fun to, like, I'm not fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
like,
that's really it. It's like a very simple thing, like realizing there's just nothing wrong with you, really, at
yeah,
all. You know? Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
No
and
problem to solve about
no
you.
problem.
There's no, yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, and maybe what I wanted to add to that is like, it's not, because like what we were saying about different experiences and this and that, but it's not about getting anything right as well. So it's not about solving anything, and it's not about nailing it, because uh, so even like as we're talking, like to point back to this transmission thing, it's like so much of this is happening beneath the conceptual level of like what the mind thinks is happening. Like the mind is on top saying like, am I getting it? Like, am I doing this right? Like, am I getting this kind of awakening thing? But it's like, it's more in, yeah, it's like in like, what's even making you interested in this conversation at all?
Hmm.
That, like that feeling or like that resonance.
Hmm.
So maybe, yeah, we could talk a bit about like resonance or intuition, because that that place, like if we go back to like maps and traditions and all of that, like again, I think that's what allowed this to happen like quite quickly for me. As soon as I found out about awakening, and I think it's quite different. If I look at the time that this happened for me, there's a lot more people talking about it outside of traditions. It's like maybe when you happened in like the 90s or whenever, when it was like, okay, the few people who were talking about it were like from lineages or whatever. But for me, it was like finding you, Lisa Cairns, yeah, John Aston, Sam Harris, like these kind of people. And it was just like this resonance of like, I don't know why, but I like what this person's talking about. Like it started with Sam Harris. I was like, okay, what's he talking about? This whole there's no self, there's this, there's that, there's non-dual. Like, what is he talking about? But it's interesting. I don't know why. And just following that, following that. But then also the letting go of like, okay, that's not really doing it for me anymore. And then it was like,
Hmm.
oh, he's had a conversation with John Aston. John Aston has this kind of different flavor to him that I find really interesting. And kind of after John Aston, then it was like someone was like, check out this guy Angelo Dilullo. Went and watched your videos. But it's like the resonance is happening beneath what the mind thinks is happening, because I listened to one of your videos and it was just like, oh. And then after that, I was like so interested in like what you were talking about. But it's like life is like giving you the breadcrumbs all the
Hmm.
time. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, if somebody's watching this, you've already followed some breadcrumbs. Like,
Yeah.
just keep inquiring. Yeah, keep at it.
Yeah.
Keep curious. Look into the nature of your experience. The other thing that came to me was, um, I really want to emphasize the simplicity of all of this as well, because we can make it sound complicated,
Mm.
but there's something really, really simple. Like the mind is complicated. Thoughts are complicated.
Yeah.
This isn't complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this ties into the hiding thing. Like when you feel shame, then you want to hide the shame, so then you act like everything's okay, right? Like I did that. I remember it, and I think maybe many people do it. Maybe everybody does it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
the process we're talking about, in one sense, what it does is it just turns your attention back around, and it goes, well, why am I hiding? Do I need to hide? I don't know. I feel shame. Oh, that's a sensation. That's a feeling, an emotion. What is it associated with? Oh, there's a thought that says something's wrong. Let me look at that. That's just a
Mhm.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that? Where is that thought? It's like, it's just structured in what? Consciousness? Like there's just this sense of conscious, like I'm just conscious.
Yeah.
And then it's like, can you go any farther back than that? Do you need to go any farther back than that? Like you can almost deconstruct anything by just turning your attention around and becoming curious instead of avoidant.
Yeah.
And instead of running from your own
Yeah.
internal world all the time, it's like just turn around and look, see
Yeah.
what's happening. Just look closely enough at anything, and truth will be revealed. That's what I found all along
Yeah.
this path.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that brings me to like an inquiry that was actually really profound and powerful, and it'll probably resonate with people like in the chronic illness space as well, because that's how I was kind of using it. Was like, I think also in one of your videos, it like to emphasize the simplicity thing, like there was some, and I'll share what it was. It was like this video around um what if there's nothing to resist at all? Like I can't remember what you titled it. You were just like, how do you feel comfortable in your own skin at all times? And it was like, okay, so like what if there's just nothing? What if you just don't resist life? What if there's just nothing you have to resist? There's nothing you have to fix. um and to emphasize the simplicity, I was like, so what? Like I remember watching that, and I was like, so why do I? Because I got it, like I got it. So I was like, so why do I need this awakening thing, right? Like if I just don't have to resist anything at all, like if there's just fundamentally nothing that I have to fix, nothing that I have to resist, like why do I need this awakening thing? And I just want to share that to like emphasize the simplicity of it. Like it's that simple, you know. But then you can use it as an inquiry, which is something that I started to do. Was like then I was still very caught up in the story and this identity of like being sick and having to fix this part of myself and having to fix that part of myself. So whenever that would start to come online, it'd be like, hold up. I remember there's nothing to resist, but now it feels like there is something to resist. So what is it? You know, and I would just like keep on going into that. Like if it was an uncomfortable sensation in the body that the mind was like, oh, this is, you know, this is something we need to fix. This is the problem. It's like, but what is it? You know, like what is it? Like even pain, like even
Mhm.
like what if I, and it was for me it was also like this mix of like compassion, like kind of compassionate acceptance and allowance of that, of like what if that's just allowed to be there exactly as it is. And the
Mhm.
curiosity of what is it in any case, and the curiosity of like, and why do I have to resist it, you know, like that. And for anybody, like you could do this right now. It's just like if there's something that it feels like you need to fix, pain, discomfort, a certain thought, a certain emotion, what is fundamentally uncomfortable about it? And if you find discomfort, then just keep looking. Like in the discomfort,
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
okay, that's uncomfortable. What, like, I remember also this from your book. It's like discomfort is your it's like your little alarm bell saying you're going in the right direction, essentially. It's like in
Mhm.
that discomfort, it's like follow it. Keep looking. Like so it says
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. Feel into that, which is what is it actually talking about that feels uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked a lot about the functioning of thought and how it what it does and all that and why it can be distorting, but
Hmm.
one of the things thought can do is that it can make us feel like we're always running from things, like
Yeah.
internally, like in our
Yeah.
mind, like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a thought about what happened at work, and then it's like, oh, I don't want to think about that, and then you think about something else, and then, but there's something about we can almost like push thoughts away and bounce off of thoughts and dissociate. And this that you and I are talking about, it's like it's actually just turning toward anything. What
Yeah.
is it's like?
Yeah.
What is the thought
Exactly.
right now? Just turn right towards it, and you'll find it kind of just calms down. Might just totally disappear. What's
Yeah.
the next thought?
Yeah.
You know, Eckhart Tolle, I think, points to this in his book as well. It's just like a cat looking at the mouse hole. Just wait for the next thought. Just
Mm,
wait for it. You know,
mm,
just wait for it, and you'll
mm,
find a gap. You'll find there's a kind of gap there
yeah.
of just well, you don't have to do anything. You can
Yeah.
actually just be. There's just being there, and
Yeah.
it's a bigger deal than you realize. Until you get better at doing that, you may not notice it, but at some point you'll realize like, oh, the gap is way bigger than I thought, and actually,
Yeah.
it's a settledness. It's an ease. It's a neutralness that actually turns out to be really sweet. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we don't have to push against life. We don't have to push against thoughts. We don't have to push against emotions. We can actually very simply in one moment turn around and just go, what's here? Let me
Mm,
just feel it.
mm,
Well, let
mm,
me, a thought comes and says, that's too intense. Well, that's a thought. There, so, okay, let me experience the thought. It's like, oh, now there's a sensation. There's a sensation. It's in the chest. Yeah, there's a sensation here. It's
mm,
like, what if you just move your attention to whatever's appearing and flow with your experience? Like,
yeah.
you start to feel like one of those pieces of seaweed at the bottom of the ocean that's just like swaying with the tide. It doesn't fight
Yeah.
the tide, it just moves with the tide and it survives perfectly. It's like that's what it's designed to do, you know.
Yeah.
Our attention and our consciousness has the capacity to do that, where it just flows with everything. And then it starts to become oceanic, where there's actually this kind of interconnectedness of everything. It's like, wait, there is nothing I could push against. There's no pushing against anything. There's just isness, you know, and that's a nice place. So,
And it's also just like so much space.
yeah,
It's like um I often like
yeah.
guide people with this. It's like, what if you just you don't try to create the space, you just feel into the like what's already there, you know, like any
Mhm.
sensation. What if we just said like it feels very contracted and we don't need to force it, but what if we just like give that a little bit more space? but you don't need to mentally create the space. The space is
Hmm.
already here, and the allowance is
Hmm.
already here. Like there's
Hmm.
infinite space, there's infinite allowance for anything that can arise in experience.
Hmm.
Because like I would often share people the idea of allowing as like kind of one of the fundamental, like it just that wish you want to get rid, just allow it, like just relax back into that, let it be here. You
Hmm.
don't need to fundamentally fix it. But then obviously
Hmm.
the mind can start to, how do I allow? Is this allowing? Is this resisting? Am I doing this? Or am I doing that? But it's like it's just the acknowledgement, the noticing, like in the noticing and in acknowledging, the allowing is already there. Like simply by something
Hmm.
being um an aspect of your experience is already allowed, because how else could it be here?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
um, but
Exactly.
I wanted
Yeah,
to
if
add,
someone really gets
yeah,
the significance of what you just said, that's huge because
yeah,
if it's noticed, if it's here, if it's felt, if it's thought, if it's a movement of consciousness, if it's an emotion, it's already here.
yeah,
There's nothing that needs to be done about it. It's already here. It's like you just meet experience so seamlessly
yeah, exactly,
um, when you don't fight it, you know.
yeah,
But it does take. I think it does take some insight
yeah,
into the nature of thought.
yeah, yeah,
Without that first, that's why the first shift I really emphasize
yeah,
some first shift in identity because otherwise thought is just pretty tenacious actually,
yeah,
and it'll
yeah,
keep binding you into concepts about this
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and you're not even aware of what's happening. Like I think that's what's so like that's when, and that's we could talk about the shadow work a little bit maybe, but that's when the you can really get the nuance of allowing, like how everything is fundamentally allowed, because you can start to see like even that thought that is like, am I allowing this or am I resisting it? It's like, oh, that's just the same thing that's completely allowed, and then
Hmm.
but that's also what terrifies the mind, because that's kind of um the groundlessness in a sense of like
Yeah,
uh
doesn't give it anything to do. Yeah,
yeah,
there can
exactly.
be
So like
there are a few kind of fear barriers here, and one is when the mind, the part of us, I guess that it's really the identification with thought around this, but when it's like you perceive that there's nothing you need to do,
yeah,
that might sound great, but then the mind is like, but all I do, like that's all I'm always doing is looking for the next thing to do,
it's
like
like
because
very
it has to feel like
threatening.
it's doing
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah, it's threatening. It's fundamentally threatening for the mind, because it's like,
Mhm.
so what now? Like you don't need me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically.
What's gonna happen if I don't have any problems? I'll just have to sit here and feel everything. It's like, yeah, but you'll learn to enjoy it. It gets pretty sweet after a while when you just
Yeah, yeah,
feel.
yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, then maybe can bring us into the, well, one thing I wanted to circle back to is just when you were talking about the relationship, um or like the going into anything, right? Like all it is about not orienting away but rather towards. I remember like something that was also such a helpful shift in perspective was that even thought is like that as well, which I think a lot of
Mhm.
people can get stuck in if they're trying meditation or inquiry or anything like that. It's like, and this is why I've always loved your unbound consciousness approach, kind of like you were giving us like a mini transmission there. Like I could feel the expansiveness of it. But the idea to go into a thought, like that was such a shift in perspective for me at some point, where it was like, when a thought is coming up, that itself is the entry point as well. That is that is the
Yeah.
object. And I think like I really want to emphasize that for people, because you can hear that, but you can still fundamentally sit and then see the next thought as like, oh no, there's just more thinking happening. And I'm looking for even the gap in thoughts, but you don't even need to look for the gap. You can just like really immerse yourself in the thought, in like,
Mhm.
and again, I learned a lot from your unbound consciousness stuff, which really resonated, where it was just like what is that texture of that thought? Like what is that even? So the mind is immediately like, another thought, another thought, another thought, but it's like, slow it down. And what? So when you're talking about a thought, like what are we even talking about? Like this is something to
Mhm.
look into your experience, like that which you're labeling as a thought. Like what is it experientially?
Mhm.
Like that's such a
Mhm.
great entry point as well. Yeah, I shouldn't say.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you ask the question, or when I ask the question, what is that experientially?
Yeah,
I would use the analogy of like, let's say, I mean, it's absurd, but let's say you've never stuck your hand in water or something,
yeah,
and if you're standing there and I say stick your hand in the water, you'd say, well, what is it like to stick my hand in the water? I'm like, no, no, stick your hand in the water. That's
yeah.
what I mean about thoughts.
Yeah,
I don't mean
yeah,
think about
Yeah.
what a thought is. I mean,
Yeah.
notice that it's there, or how would you even you must be aware of it.
Yeah.
So just notice the texture of thought, the
Yeah.
experience of thought, the thinkingness of thought. Dzogchen has this term knowingness, which I really like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rigpa, consciousness. So it's like
Mhm.
just notice like one thought, and if you do this earnestly, you'll realize then it actually doesn't matter what thought it is. It could
Exactly.
be a simple thought like, "Oh, I like sushi," or it could be a really thought that could be really a like a scary thought for somebody, or like an afflictive thought like, "I'm a worthless human being," or something, right? But
Mhm.
to me, neither one of those has any. They're both just thought. They're like
Yeah.
made out of
Yeah.
it's almost like if you had clay and you formed it into a teddy bear, or you formed it into a rainbow, or you formed it into a car, or that, it's just still clay. Like it doesn't matter what it's, it's like you're giving it the meaning. That's
Yeah.
how thoughts are.
Yeah.
And so when you start to realize like, oh, you can take any thought, no matter how scary it seems or how bizarre it seems, and you can literally just put your attention right on it.
Yeah.
Just don't move your mind and notice that thought will just stay there, and then it'll just kind of fade, and it'll be, and you're like, wait, what is this feeling? It's just this, and that's where the wave is
Mhm.
found to be the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Each wave on top of the ocean is literally just made out of ocean. It's
Yeah.
just movement of ocean, and
Yeah.
so you realize that one wave or that one thought isn't anything good or bad or right or wrong. It's literally just part of consciousness,
Yeah.
but you realize that in real time by orienting toward it and just noticing, that's the feeling of thought. That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's thought, consciousness, consciousness, thought. You'll start to actually realize there
Yeah.
really is no barrier there, boundary, differentiation. It's an undifferentiated experience of
Yeah.
this is where all these words come in that I don't want to just sell you on a word. I want you to find the experience yourself. But
Mhm.
consciousness, being, knowingness, pure consciousness, unbound. I like unbound consciousness because it's consciousness not
Yeah.
bound to any
Yeah.
particular thought.
Yeah.
So it accommodates any thought. And it's
Yeah.
like it starts to feel really oceanic and rather enjoyable. I
Yeah.
think the word bliss, it could be overused or whatever, but the word blissful to me is the experience of unbound consciousness. It seems
Yeah.
to refer to, yeah.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that because like whenever I've had like a state like that in like it's through that kind of an inquiry, of like going
Mhm.
into um okay, let me focus. Like sometimes it was like, okay, focus on the sensations and focus on this and focus on that. But it was like if the entry point was like the experience of thought or the texture of thought, it would kind of, yeah, so I totally get what you mean about this like kind of blissful, like peaceful. But what's key when I want to say when I'm saying that, you're not looking for an experience of bliss in your experience. Like if I'm like, oh, it's this blissful experience, you're looking at the thought. You're
Yeah,
not
that's
looking
right.
at all bliss.
That's right.
Yeah. But I wanted to add like another analogy that I like because I like the water analogy you use. And I've kind of the way that I sometimes talk about it is it's like so like let's talk about the ocean and let's say that the ocean could just suddenly start forming shapes and symbols like in the water, and like the water is like making all these words and these symbols, and you like want to know like what is the ocean, and you're just constantly looking. So it's like a mix of like you'll touch the water one, but it's like you're constantly focusing on the symbols. So like, okay, so the ocean is like saying it's this, and the ocean is saying it's like that. But maybe like what does the ocean feel like? But all you're looking at is what it's telling you in its symbols. So, but it's like
Hmm.
the ocean is simply what it is, regardless of what the symbols it's making. So like, what if you just
Yeah.
go into the ocean and it's still the same ocean regardless of any symbols that it makes, like no matter
Yeah.
if this
That's right.
the water is still water, so it's the same way if
Mhm.
we're talking about consciousness, it's exactly the same thing. Like you could form the water into anything and yet it's still, if you put your hand in it, it's still the same water, like no matter what
Yeah.
shape it's kind of creating. Yeah, so
Yeah, and this may sound a little trippy to people listening or may not, but don't hold this too heavily, but it's true. And that is what you start to realize is that your analogy, I like your analogy a lot of water, where it's like forming almost like
yeah,
shapes inside itself of just out of made of nothing but water.
yeah,
Maybe it's
yeah,
currents or something. But what you start to feel is that even though in thought, sometimes it looks like there's a viewer and the thought is almost at a distance, it
yeah,
starts actually, you starts to sense that there's no particular viewer that's like another thought in there somewhere.
yeah,
It's like the view is the ocean. Like you start to experience this universal view,
yeah,
and then you realize, oh, that thought is just one tiny part of the wholeness of my experience. Like I'm not viewing it from any particular angle. I'm in some sense I'm viewing it from every angle,
Yeah.
but I'm also viewing the viewing. The
Yeah.
viewing is viewing
Exactly.
itself
Yeah.
infinitely in every direction.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that thought's like not such a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's helpful with this kind of approach, this unbound consciousness approach, to always keep some attention on any arising thought. Otherwise, you can get kind of bound into it again. But if you
Yeah.
just notice any arising thought anywhere and just let yourself kind of feel that expansion and realize, like, oh my gosh, every thought I've ever thought is actually this one thought. It's all right here. Everything I've
Mhm.
ever thought about life, everything I've ever thought about what I want, what I don't want, what I'm afraid of, what's far, what's near, what's dear to me, what's I don't like. It's literally all of this. It's all the same stuff. It's made out of this material of being conscious. And like, whoa, damn, like it's all here.
Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
here. You have nowhere you need to go, and you're
Yeah.
carrying it around.
Yeah.
You're carrying it around with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That and that was always like such a like, so if we talk about like maybe more of the shadow worky phases of the journey, um like after the okay they call this, so like often it's, you have the first just for people watching, you have the first shift and it can feel like life's really flowy, and again you might not even perceive it as a shift because a lot of people watching, like coming from all sorts of angles, but just like this flow of like, okay, life's cool, like, everything is, um my thoughts are not a problem, and you have this kind of shift in your relationship with thoughts. And then, and actually I saw we both interviewed Maggie recently, and I really loved the way Maggie talks about all of this, which is like then the suffering comes back, and that can actually, like, in the whole spiritual space, and I actually experienced this a lot myself, it was almost the same kind of shame around the suffering played out again for me, where it was like, oh, okay, like now I'm kind of I've had this shift, and but now I'm suffering again. But like, and it's almost unconscious in how it happens as well, where it's like this again, this kind of trying to hide the suffering, or like in some sense, like hiding of the suffering. And I suppose I wanted to bring that up because I see it a lot, and this is what I loved about Maggie's book. I see it a lot in non-dual spaces and people talking about this. And like there can be subtle fixations or distortions that start to come up as like, it means that this shouldn't be happening anymore. This
Mhm.
experience has to stop arising. Like otherwise, you haven't had a shift, or you haven't had an awakening.
Mhm.
And I think part of, for me personally, what I love about um, what Maggie was sharing was like this complete humanizing of all these shifts and all these states and all these kind of, we can talk about anatta and like, the non-dual shifts and all of that, but like none of it means getting rid of any aspect of the human experience, or even like emotions, and even reactivity was a I liked something that Maggie shared about that, was um like I've also loved your talking about reactivity as like kind of a stage of the process of like working through reactivity, but it's like the mind can even create a fixation around that of like, oh no, if like there's something arising in my experience in like a sort of reaction, that means that something's gone wrong, or like
Mhm. Yeah.
the process has kind of been messed up a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wrote in my book that there after the kind of honeymoon period that you talked about, and most people have them, not everybody, but most people have some kind of honeymoon period where they just notice a sense of ease, a sense of things just being clear and calm for a period of time. It can be a couple weeks, couple months. I've heard it even up to a couple years actually. But some people say like, oh yeah, 2 days, like 2 days, and all of a sudden the shadow stuff came hardcore. It can happen. So, but the shadow stuff, I want to just say, that it's first of all, it's not new. None of what you're experiencing is new.
Yeah.
You've had it. You've had it in. You've been carrying it around. What really happened was when the identification, the kind of solid identification with thoughts like took a hit, and it's never going to go back the way it was before. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But one thing that was doing was it was being used as a coping mechanism, and you didn't
Yeah.
realize it. It was being used as a coping mechanism to actually avoid a lot of experience, a lot
Yeah.
of intense sensations, a lot of resistance patterns, a lot of
Yeah.
different things, right?
Yeah.
And so if you are, I don't know what the word is, uh, I want to say wise or sincere, but like if you're just honest with yourself, I'll say that I'll say vulnerable. If you're vulnerable and authentic with what's going on,
Yeah.
you will see that, okay, yeah, there's a lot of intense stuff coming through. Like You may feel a lot of shame. You may feel helplessness. You may feel a lot of fear. You will feel fear in a more direct way than you had experienced before in times or experiences where you would not normally have had it, like driving on the road. I've had so many people tell me this, like they never felt fear driving, and after awakening, you're like, oh my God, like I could die at any moment. I was never aware of that somehow, you know. So I'm not saying it's going to stay like that, but it's not uncommon. Also, anger can come up. A lot of times, people who go through this are very sensitive people, so they repress their anger a lot. They can be people pleasers. You may be surprised at some anger coming up, and so intense emotions are going to come up after this. None of that's wrong, and none of it's bad, even though we're societally conditioned to believe it is.
Yeah.
And even some spiritual traditions will say, like Buddhism sometimes calls things like afflictive emotions. So
Yeah.
I think we really have a kind of contemporarily a kind of collective belief that emotions are somehow bad, like
Yeah.
negative emotions and all this.
Yeah.
Forget
Exactly.
all that. You're
Yeah.
just feeling emotion. Forget
Yeah.
it. It's not negative. It's not positive. It's not right or wrong. It's emotion.
Yeah.
Emotion is energy in motion. You're inhabiting a body. It's intense to inhabit a body energetically. It's just how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
You're going to feel the emotions. The resistance is what you're really working with, is like seeing how habitually we've said no to all of this.
Yeah.
And ultimately, when it comes full circle, it's exactly like Maggie said. You don't have to get rid of anything, and you actually can function just fine and more than fine feeling all of it. You'll feel
Yeah.
everything. You'll feel so much more than you ever thought you did, and you'll love it.
Yeah.
It's great to be
Yeah.
alive and feel, especially in a non-dualistic way, which we could talk about. It's a later shift, but
Yeah.
at some point, there's no distance between anything anywhere, and there's no separation, and your experience of everything is so full on all the time that if there's any shadow material, there's any like repressed material, it's coming to the surface. You can't
Yeah.
hide it anymore. You
Yeah.
can't bury it. You can't section yourself off from it. It just starts coming up. So don't be surprised if you get a lot of that coming up, especially if you had a lot of trauma. It's
Yeah.
just going to happen. It won't be forever, but do some work around it. Do some authentic, honest work. If it's trauma therapy, if it's circling work, if it's, somatic, there's a bunch of somatic work you can do. There's
Yeah.
psychedelic approaches. There's all kinds of things, but
Yeah.
make a habit of, first of all, going easy on yourself. Don't beat
Yeah.
yourself up for it. It's totally normal, totally normal. And second, be willing to do some work and not just try to spiritually bypass it and pretend it's not happening, because that's not doing anyone any good.
Yeah.
And you won't be able to do that forever. At some point, you'll have to deal with it. You don't
Yeah.
want to push it away too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally resonate with all of that. And what I wanted to add, because like you said, like you could be surprised by what emotions arise. And I also wanted to add, and again, your content always helped me a lot with this. It's like the intensity of it can also be really surprising, And I also feel like this is where I'm helping people a lot, is in the beliefs around the intensity that something bad is fundamentally going to happen when you're entering into like deep fear, or specifically fear, because fear, like this is something that I've reflected on, like the more I explored the emotion of fear, was like fear is afraid of itself. Like the emotion of fear is afraid of itself, So as soon as you touch into fear, it is going to react to the emotion of fear with more fear. It's going to be like, if you go into this fear, you're going to die. You're never going to come out of it. Or it will pull up exactly what is most terrifying for you. Like I often hear from people, but it's like, I'm going to go back into my depression. Because also, like, I think that's the other thing about the kind of the other shoe dropping, as you'd often describe it, is it's like, there's also this fear of having lost, something having gone wrong. And now if I go into that, I'm going to lose, this clarity that I gained from this shift. Or like, this is, I think how the mind can often interpret it is like, in whatever it is, like even anger, like, okay, that's going to make me a horrible person if I really feel that anger and allow myself to like let it move through me, not onto anybody else, but just to really notice. And that's often when the intensity can surprise you as well. Like I've had, and I feel like you become like a conduit or a space for like things that you would never expect, like pure hatred, pure rage, just like you see why it's why the world does what it does, because if the stuff plays out unconsciously, it does. Yeah, you just understand why like nobody feels like they can sit with that kind of a thing. So I think I wanted to
Yeah.
emphasize that is like, it can be really intense, like the shadow work. Like you could really hit, especially if you're sensitive, like you said. And I think a lot of my audience tends to be, because I think these are the kind of people that start to get it playing out physically in their body. This is something that I learned about myself. It's like, oh yeah, so much repressed anger because I was sensitive and didn't want to like project that onto anybody, or you just learn other people's reactions. As you grow up, you learn,
Hmm.
okay, it's not safe to express that here, it's not safe to express that there. It's like it's fundamentally innocent. Even the repression is innocent. It's just kind of the um, self-structure learning how to look after itself. But yeah, like if you're sensitive, it can be a lot, and it's okay. Like the even the thought that says like this fear is going to send me into like a downward spiral for the rest of my life, and it's like that's okay. Like that thought can be there. The depression, like the kind of existential, um, it's I've often heard you talk about existential terror. Um, and often what I would feel more, or like the one that was like one of the real deep shadows for me was existential despair. Was this
Mm.
like there's nothing, like this is such fundamental layer of suffering and this despair that like, and this kind of goes back to what we are talking about earlier, about like the hopelessness of like you can't commit suicide, you can't, there's also nothing that's going to solve it. And I feel like this is one of the things we circle back to like much later in the process, is like you meet, like you said, you meet all these things that were already there, but now you really meet it. You don't meet it with like a
Hmm. Yeah.
with like a barrier. And the despair can be one of the most, that's like deep shadow territory, but like the no strategy will ever solve it. Like you're in this, and there's a massive surrender that can happen in that, but there's like literally nothing you've ever done that's ever worked before. Like even talking about the
Hmm.
allow, like that works up until a point, until it's like I can't allow this, I can't get rid of it, I can't, there's just nothing that can be done
Hmm.
about it. And then there's another like fundamental letting go in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you said that sort of existential despair. I might categorize things this way. At the very bottom of the emotion body, there's these two fundamental fears I find. One is like, and they're kind of opposite. One is the fear of being stuck in a body, with
All
stuck
right.
in an emotion, stuck in a body, stuck in the experience of being alive. The other one's like the fear of not having resources, or a fear of abandonment, a fear
Right.
of
Right.
like
Right.
losing people, losing others, losing your connection, losing your loved one, losing your mother. Like those are really deeply rooted, both of those.
Yeah.
And they express it in different ways at different times and stuff. But that existential despair is like you said, it's the realization that there's not a damn thing I can do to escape this. I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
feel it, which
Yeah.
actually turns out to be just fine, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Adyashanti calls it um, redemptive love. It's like you will feel this. You have to.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
out of this.
Yeah.
So, but again, there is a mental overlay there that's going like, there's no way out. I'm stuck. There's no way out. There's no strategy. That's going to feel really scary. But if you can set that aside and just feel it, and you realize like it's actually just a sensation. It,
Mm,
it may be an intense sensation, but it's a sensation, you know.
yeah.
And over time, you'll start leaning more and more and more toward that. I know you already do,
Yeah.
but for
Yeah.
anyone listening, like at first it will feel super intense because you have not felt it directly. You've
Yeah.
been up here. You just haven't felt
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
directly. When you first start feeling it directly, it is so intense. And the mind will tell every story it can to scare the shit out of you to try to dissociate back into the mind. But you'll realize at some point you can't do that anymore. You can't
Yeah.
dissociate anymore. You have to go into it. And
Mm.
that's a scary place. That's that despair at the bottom. But at
Yeah.
some point you'll realize, oh, I actually can feel this. Like I can totally feel this. And
Yeah.
then what I find is really mature shadow work leads to this. The sense of having to pull away, the sense of having to really the sense of resistance. Once that's settled enough, it actually starts turning around. It's like love. It's
Yeah.
like I will go into this. I want
Yeah.
to go. I want to go anywhere I need to go. I will go anywhere that lights up. Like whatever feels the heaviest, whatever feels the most intense. Like I'm just going to go there, and I want to go there. And I feel, and you start to actually feel, literally feel love starting to infuse within it, and from
Yeah.
your own self, like from
Yeah.
your,
Yeah.
maybe it's not a self, but you're the one doing it in a way. It's like you feel this really profound, mature autonomy
Mm.
and compassion for
Mm.
yourself, for anything that's here, but also for anyone else. Like if you
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
here for you, you can go here for anyone.
Yeah.
You know, when I do the deep shadow process, like circling with people, I mean, I'll tell them like, I will go anywhere you need to go with you. I
Yeah.
guarantee you that.
Yeah.
We'll go to
Yeah.
the pits of hell, or
Yeah.
we'll go to heaven if we need to. We'll go wherever you need to go. But I
Yeah.
promise you, I will go with you because
Yeah.
I'm not scared, because I'll go, because I've been there, and I'll go there again and again and again. And the more times you go, the more it stops feeling like resistance, and more starts feeling like actually infusion of this kind of love. But it's not really the typical way we think about love. It just feels like okayness pouring into it. Like,
Yeah,
let's go, let's feel it. It's just an acceptance that's just natural. So it's an acceptance that is completely natural. It's part of, it's like the fabric of experience.
and,
It's really lovely. Yeah.
yeah. And I would add, like, it's completely unconditional. It's not.
Hmm.
Um, it doesn't fucking matter what it is. Like I love,
Yeah.
like I can feel it as you're saying it, man. I can feel it in my heart, that love for like whatever wants to be met. Like I can so feel
Hmm.
it as you talk about it.
Mm.
Um, and that's what I love to share with people as well. Like kind of like host these containers with people, and it's like, and it can actually be quite intense sometimes for people because it's like everything is allowed to be here. Like I don't care what it is. It can be here. Like it could be the darkest, most depressive, terrifying experience, but it can be here. And like that kind of a transmission can actually be quite intense because but it's like I like what you added, like, but it doesn't have to be. It's like we don't need to force it to go there. It could be heaven, it could be hell, it could be
Hmm.
um yeah, whatever wants to arise, whatever wants to be experienced, whatever wants to be seen. I think that's a big thing as well. Like what I found very powerful in the kind of space of working in groups is like it's allowed to be seen. Like what we're talking about, like that fundamental shame of like this part of me. First, we start to see it in ourselves, but I think there's something profoundly like healing and integrated in like you're even allowed to show that to others. Like kind of sharing. This is what I'm experiencing right now. This kind of like whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be the absolute depths of existential terror or like this, but if it is, it's like this. Like that's not about you.
Hmm.
That's just
Right.
completely that's completely allowed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's actually a human experience, even though it's buried in a lot of humans.
yeah,
It's a human
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
The last thing I want to say about that too is there are very surprising things about a lot of this. But one of the most surprising things for many people, for myself as well, that is really beautiful is that we don't realize that, yes, we suppress emotions like fear and we suppress
yeah,
emotions like anger, but we also suppress joy
yeah,
in a big way. We suppress ecstasy. We suppress play. We suppress playfulness. So when you start doing this work, you find very serendipitously, not only do you not have to run from yourself anymore, and not only are all these areas that you thought were like so accursed, they're actually fine,
yeah,
but you actually start seeing on the other side, like, oh man, I can express kindness and compassion and
yeah,
appreciation for others in a very simple way. It's not a problem. It really enriches relationship, it enriches connection, and I can actually experience joy in a way that I never had before. Like
yeah,
the bandwidth for experience with the mind identified state is very narrow, both both for to
yeah,
the sort of like
yeah,
higher emotions, or I don't want to say positive or negative. It's more like the emotions that are more like maybe exuberant and
yeah,
more expansive, and then the ones that are more dense and contracted.
yeah,
They're all sort of suppressed with that world. And as you
yeah,
wake up, you realize your bandwidth for experience is tremendous, and you start to really enjoy that bandwidth
yeah,
with time. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. I think that's such an excellent point, and it was something like that I like started to realize in myself as well. It's like, oh shit, like you can also, yeah, you can get so focused on the shadow stuff that it's like, oh shit, like even the joy is allowed, like even the
Hmm.
so I completely agree. It's like and I think it's a great point. Yeah, that um and this is something that I've shared sometimes and I noticed as well is the this kind of guilt around feeling pleasure and also like around others. So it's like I would notice this, and I've actually think I've heard you talk about it somewhere before as well, is like eating food is like a great example because it can be such a pleasurable experience, but like we can also, especially around others or personally, like I've noticed this a lot, is like um the not allowing ourselves to really like feel safe and allowed to just kind of enjoy, like the real enjoyment and the pleasure of the experience. It's like we're just as terrified of that as we are of like being seen to be sad around somebody else, to just kind of um really experience the like you said, the kind of the full spectrum um of the experience, whatever it is, like whether it's the pleasure and the joy um of that experience or the so-called negative emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any any closing remarks or any last topics you want to explore or discuss?
Yeah, just for anyone listening, like you really are not born to suffer. I don't mean you can bypass suffering and just tell yourself you're not, and I wouldn't suggest that. But there are pathways, there are processes that allow you to um, really get through your suffering, to really find a way to live that doesn't intrinsically feel like suffering and will feel natural and will feel like ease and will feel like enjoyment and self-appreciation and love and connection, not only with others but with yourself. Like that is available to everyone, and I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And what we've said several times throughout, the real way to that, especially initially, is not through Kyle's method or Angelo's method or Eckhart Tolle's method or anyone else's method. It's more like listen to us. If it works, if that resonates, if you feel the resonance, turn toward where that resonance is inside of you. Like that's it. Turn toward that. Learn to trust yourself and your instinct. Maybe you'll use some inquiry techniques and so forth to like start to get to that place where you're going beyond how you know yourself, how you think about yourself in time and all that, beyond the thoughts. Then really trust that will carry you to somewhere valuable.
Yeah.
That's where the trust really comes. There's some faith in this. There's some faith in the
Oh, for
letting go in
sure.
this.
Yeah.
That the universe isn't out to just torture you for the rest of
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
life. That's
Yeah.
not how this has to be. I promise. Even though I know it feels like that sometimes, felt
Yeah.
like it to me for sure, but
Yeah.
it's not really like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great point to maybe end on, because that's been a massive aspect of it for me myself, and it's often what I share with people is the trust or the faith, especially like if it's at any stage, like even maybe in the beginning stage, because you don't exactly know what the first shift is, so you kind of have to have this faith to let go beyond what you know, and then in the depths of the shadow work, like the faith that you can experience that. And maybe what I would just
Hmm.
add is like that it's always right here. Like you're always in the right space um, of what you need to feel, right? Like that's also the trust and the faith that what you're experiencing right now in your experience, whatever that looks like, it's here. And that's like, maybe two pointings in one, but like it's okay, whatever's here. It's completely allowed to be that, and you can trust that. And also, whatever you're looking for is also already here. Whatever you're
Yeah,
seeking is also,
absolutely.
is also here, But yeah, the trust that I would like, that's I think a great one to end on is that you can really let go and trust this process beyond you in whatever form it is. Um,
Yeah.
around it. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say is it is, in some sense, it's a journeyless journey and all, but it is a journey. Like use this journey of your life, use your life
Mm,
to take this ultimate journey if
right.
you're resonating. If they've listened this long, they're resonating with us,
Yeah.
right? 90 minutes later. Use your life can set you on a journey that will take you beyond anything you can imagine, really. That it just will. It's going to take crazy twists and turns. It's going to take you to deep despair at times. It's going to take you to heights of ecstasy, but it does deliver the goods. Like the hero's journey really is a thing. Like I really
Yeah.
believe it is, and I think
Yeah.
this is the epitome of it. So yeah, use the adventure, use your life as the canvas for this adventure,
Yeah.
and it pays off. And you might be really really surprised how much you can actually enjoy your life. Most
Yeah.
people I work with, and myself included, that have gone through a lot of this, they really, in the end, are pretty surprised at how much they can actually enjoy their life. Like genuinely surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that the adventure aspect. Like, yeah, just kind of lean into, um, yeah, go on the journey, see where it takes you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And last point, I think you mentioned this once before, was like, and the hero isn't always like the hero can be fucking terrified at the beginning, and that's completely
Hmm.
okay too. You can turn around and
Oh
not
yeah.
stop the journey and quit the journey and leave the journey, and that's all part of it. Yeah.
You can almost say there's really no such thing as courage if there's no fear.
Yeah, yeah, because then why would you need courage?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Courage, trust, and and like you said, a willingness to kind of put that intention out there of like orienting to the truth
yeah,
and seeing where that takes you.
yeah, yeah. Oh, thanks so much, Angela, for your time and for everything that you've shared and just in general for all the work that you do. Um, yeah, just I've like people know this already because I show your work a lot. But yeah, if they want to find you, I mean, they can get your book simply always. What's it? Awake. It's your turn. They can check out your YouTube channel, Simply Always Awake, your website. You do online retreats, in-person retreats. Check out the Double Barrel Non-Duality, your live streams. Yeah, anything else?
No, that sounds good, man. Just and there are good resources out there now.
Yeah,
Check
this
out
is
Eckhart Tolle, check out Adyashanti. I'm
yeah,
sure your material is good too. I haven't watched your stuff, but just talking to you, I can tell people are in good hands with you. Yeah, so you find what works for you. That's it.
yeah,
Find what works for you.
exactly.
Find what resonates with you. You might find one teacher that just really resonates with you. Check out different teachers and go meet somebody. So sometimes you got to do a little interrupt too, like pattern interrupt.
Yeah,
Every once in a while I'll have someone who's like, I've been working on this for 10 years. I haven't woken up. I'm like, have you ever been to a retreat? Nope. You
yeah,
ever worked one-on-one with anybody? Nope. I'm like, well, you might need to get some leverage on yourself. So there are resources now, which is huge
mm,
compared to even 20, 30 years ago. This is a different world as far as
yeah.
access to resources if you really want to wake up and go through
Mhm.
this. So that's great. Just utilize your resources.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like specifically in a day and age like this, where you like to put yourself, like you said, it's just something that I think what's also key is where you could be seen and be more vulnerable because I think you can consume nowadays, like the beautifulness of how many resources there are and how easily they can be accessed, but also the fact that I mean you could just stay at home and like consume,
Hmm.
this kind of content, but like the real like the vulnerability in like joining even like an online space where you talk and share your experience with others or an in-person retreat, like I completely agree, like that might be exactly what's necessary. You might have watched all the videos and kind of really grasped it, but like something in the
Hmm.
relating with others in this space is also such a powerful um, part of it, can be necessary
Yeah.
depending on maybe where someone's fixations are. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And everybody's fixations are different at different times and so forth. And not
yeah,
everybody has to go to retreats at all. But,
yeah,
you know, it's like I'm just pointing out like there are a lot of types of resources out there now. You
yeah,
know, try things out. If
yeah,
especially if you feel like you're serious about this, but you feel stagnant, you feel like something is just really not clicking, like put yourself out there a little bit and see what comes up and say a prayer to the universe and then
yeah.
the teacher will show up.
Well,
The
that's the
right
thing.
teacher
Like,
in
if
whatever
you're not
realm.
sure what, if you're not sure what to try, like, trust the resonance, trust the, like, you will come across the thing that's exactly like, and it might not be me, it might not be you. Like, I often point people to your resources, but it could be something completely different, somebody that works in a very different way. But it's like that's what pops up, and it's like, hmm,
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm interested in this, but I'm interested in it. Then go for
Yeah.
it. Like, go for it. Go on the,
Totally.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. That's it. I feel the same way. It's like I sometimes I tell people just keep your eyes open, like 5% more than usual. Look around as you move through the day. Look around, not like you're looking for something specific, but just trust that wonder is available. Like something
yeah,
mysterious is available. You
yeah,
may be really surprised where you find it. You may
yeah,
literally bump into the right book or the person, or you may just experience something that you've been overlooking, or you may find something in nature that, you just hadn't quite perceived it that way. So, it's like you can also you can also kind of cultivate the wonder too,
yeah,
realizing like
yeah.
you're looking at it, you're looking at reality, you're looking at unfiltered realities
Yeah,
right
yeah,
in front of your face. And so just open yourself up to this and just open yourself up to life in general, and it will
yeah.
it will unfold.
Well, that's so key. Like, it just made me think of something a lady I met recently shared with me, and I thought it was such a great different perspective of things. Again, is that like the transmissions can be in nature. Like if you like you said, if you just open yourself up to life, it doesn't have to come from specifically a retreat or a teacher. Like it could literally just be in nature. Life can give you exactly that transmission. It can have because our minds could be like, okay, so I need to sign up for this retreat, or I need to go to that, group or work with this person. But it also can just come from, a random interaction with a stranger that they could just transmit some sort of something to you that
Hmm.
you wouldn't have got otherwise. It could be a space that has a certain
Hmm.
energy to it. Yeah, so it can come from anywhere. Like I really like that point where it can just come from anywhere, not what our mind thinks awakening comes from this part of life and not that part of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right.